What's going on, Internet? And welcome to another ARFCOM review. We are doing, as you just put it,
today. Welcome to the War Crime Stick review.
Yeah,
about your War Crime Stick and you.
We are going to talk about whether or not 12 gauge is relevant in 2024. And
TLDR, it is.
It's still pretty based. We're going to talk about that. There are some caveats to being based here. But, however, I think that it is a more intriguing weapons platform than people think it is.
Still takes a chunk, throws it on the ground, 2024 or not.
So if you'd like to be part of that discussion, just wait for a quick word from our sponsors, and we will let the arguments commence.
Do you like seeing the boogeyman hanging out with cryptids rolling dice in your front yard? I know I do. If you want to see all the crazy things happening right outside your house, check out TNVC.com.
Since we're on a kind of funny topic here, we're going to do a POU on this.
We're not super fancy. Maybe just
We're just a little fancy.
Just a little. No big deal.
For Gen Z, for everybody that has been carrying a gun for less than 10 years, POU is philosophy of use. Thank you to the less fancy of people for that terminology.
Yep.
And 12 gauge, generally, I think for most people, the argument does still stand for birds and doors. I think that they crush it there, and that's why a lot of people, even haters, have to admit that they're very handy there.
I'm sure. What are they breaching with?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. And also, what are you breaching? Really on the alternative side, for it's going to say, highly effective and less offensive gun as far as politically speaking, I think that there is a philosophy of use in home defense and personal defense, and even like from a preparedness standpoint, I think it crushes there. And man, we'll talk about this, but dude, inside of 50, I would argue almost all the way out to like 75. If you're using slugs, you could probably stretch it to like 100.
Good Sabo slug, zero shotgun, maybe.
I think this is the most effective, still to this day, the reigning champion of I need this to stop right now.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. So
stopping power.
Yeah, philosophy of use. Stopping power doesn't exist until you probably get to 12 gauge and up on terminal ballistics in the distances this is designed to operate in. But I do think that a lot of people sleep on this when they have that discussion about both in the preparedness standpoint from not just like economic collapse, but also like crazy stuff. Like
I think
really
also there's a lot
crushes.
of like misconceptions about shotguns too. That like you don't have to aim; you can just point and shoot, which is not true at all.
Sir, a very, very well vetted, highly experienced, world-renowned firearms expert told me that I could just fire 2 blasts in the air.
Actually, you know what?
I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah,
that's true. I've heard
or
that.
just
You're right
them.
though. There's a bunch of FUD lore, and then there's a bunch of issues as far as like people choosing ammunition and not understanding what its purpose is. And the fact that it is not new technology, right?
Yeah.
Manually operated shotgun, we'll just break it down to pre-John Moses Browning and post-John Moses Browning, right? 1897 is the trench gun that everybody loves to talk about, right?
Yeah. Good old war crime stick.
Yeah.
That's where we got it.
I wish my shotgun had a sword on the end of it.
For the faint of heart, on these things, I do think that they still are the king of versatility as far as going from hunting to home defense.
100%.
But I also do think that they have some really cool legal aspects to them as far as where you can buy them and where you can own them. So I think a lot of people sleep on this because of that lack of experience, that lack of knowledge. And so we're going to walk down what that looks like. I think cost is kind of the first big thing. These man, there's a big gap from the one you get for free from Pappy all the way up to you have the beautiful M4 Benelli there, the Italian style.
We could even go on to like Fostech.
Dude,
super cool
you
shotgun.
Get into some cool,
that Genesis K12 or whatever, mag-fed, short little.
Yeah, when you start to look at like the really high end, the Origin 12 and stuff like that, you really do have.
Gen 12 was terrifying,
dude. But it's like if you're willing to spend the money on there, you're getting a detachable magazine. You're getting a lot of these other, and again, like cyclic rake for days.
Yeah.
Right. Something that's more compact, more lightweight. You get a lot of cool stuff in that space on 12 gauge shotguns that a lot of people aren't looking at. You also have you have a base 870 here. You have the Wilson Combats of the world that'll go have accessories for these as far as sling mounts and all of that stuff, and then Vancomp, who's willing to go and customize this thing to the nines.
The
And
cool
so-
thing about 870 is they've been made for so long and they've been used by many departments and stuff that at this point, like most, honestly, pawn shops, gun shops will have a used 870. Like it's pretty hard to not find them.
Yeah, my Wingmaster's an old school police shotgun.
yeah, this is a police Magnum.
And
yeah.
you can get them pretty dang cheap, honestly.
I mean, it's great, right? It's a simple operating mechanism. So essentially,
also
like the cost is not there to produce it,
It's also a
research it.
very reliable feeding system.
Yeah, as long as you're not short stroking it, you giving that thing the proper amount of oomph every time.
You
It
need full
works.
range of motion for that boy.
Yep.
yeah. So
No short strokes.
Don't treat yourself.
the cool thing about that is I do think that there's a lot of proliferation of these guns in many different forms, whether it's a 870 or if you go up to 1301s to a less degree, like what we have here. And then there's a bunch of M4s swimming around. They're just expensive.
Yep.
Yeah.
For the poors out here like myself. But I do think that the cool part about this is in all 50 states, at least here, you have access to these and you can buy these things and you're not going to get yelled at or the angry stare at your funny gun shop. But also, there's places around the world that'll give you accessibility to these. Europeans and things of that nature, which is really, really cool. But that's why they're so. It's also with ammunition. Like you can get birdshot for dumb cheap.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not advocating for using birdshot for anything other than birds.
That won't kill a man. He said, it'll just pepper him up nicely. I said, what the pepper? Hot BBs? Ha, ha!
But
Peppers them up nice.
It does. I've got a piece right here. It's
you guys could just look up 12 gauge ballistic testing and you can kind of see some of that stuff. But I do think that the cost, at least in the baseline, is not horrible. And when you are spending the mad money on something cool like a Fostech Origin 12 or something like that, you are getting appreciably a more feature-rich thing, unlike with ARs. The gap in price is big, but oftentimes the gap in capability is not, or at least for the use case that you're using it for.
Yeah.
If this is a gun that's going to see 50 rounds a year, your super, super high-end, Geisley Super Duty isn't going to do anything that your Delton can't or your PSA gun can't.
And also with versatility also comes like variability. And so that's another thing as well. It's quite important with, this platform is if you are using birdshot or even if you're using different kinds of buckshot, you're going to have different kinds of spreads. And that's one of the things that's really important when it comes to shotguns is if you are not training with the gun, you should bare minimum at least know what your rounds are going to do when you pull the trigger.
if you haven't patterned your shotgun and you think you're going to use it for home defense, you're wrong.
Pretty sketchy.
So
I still love you, but you're wrong.
it's a good idea to know what it's going to do when it leaves the barrel. Is it going to put a fist size hole in something at 25 yards, or is it going to? It can very well do both depending on the load, the choke, and how you have your gun configured. And so as cool as it is that you have all of this versatility with it, with that also comes variability. It's not as simple as point, shoot, hit something this big every time.
We saw a pretty big difference in performance. I'm not going to name too many names, but I will give a kudos to Federal Premium. They had a really cool flight control.
Federal flight control
That was dumb.
it's hard to beat.
That hurt my feelings at how well that did. But really getting into like ergonomics of these guys, and really I'll also put this as far as battery of arms. This is where the shotgun kind of struggles in a lot of places. I think in the semi-autos less so. I think that this would be much easier to teach somebody that's not as gun savvy or gun experienced.
Yeah.
But man, a pump gun is asking a lot out of the user. I think in the world of things like Glocks and ARs, that you put the magazines in the bolt home and plastic Jesus will save me.
It's a lot to take it granted for.
Yeah, I think when you get to at least specifically pump guns, these are the most prolific. As far as ones that are probably swimming out there.
Oh, yeah.
These are also the most cost not prohibitive. These are pretty inexpensive. But I think that the just learning how to do it, it's typically going to take more than one session to get more proficient, unless you're dumping a lot of rounds through it. And then you're dumping a lot of rounds to 12 gauge, and that gets very old
Shoulders
very
gonna feel
quickly.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, the old adage of the shotgun is the hardest thing to fight with, right? You got to feed it. You got to constantly keep topping it off. There's no point in which you can quickly, easily reload to your full capacity. It just is what it is.
I think especially on a pump gun, you're also starting to run into, it's not just length of pull for the trigger, but also being able to actually reach the pump. If you were a much smaller statured person, you're going to struggle bus with this. Semi-autos do shine there. All of your things that you have to mess with to get your gun to run are behind the barrel. In general, at least at the pump gun level, it's not for smaller statured people. Also, 12 gauge can be can recoil a lot. You start doing full power 3.5-inch shells, and you're not having a great time at the best of times.
You might get a couple ducks or goose or something though.
But you can definitely go and do 20 gauge.
If you're 20 gauge youth model, perfect.
If you're getting down to 410. You probably just use a rifle at that point.
And it may even be worth going and get some type of training for shotguns.
Yeah.
There are techniques that you can do, such as the push-pull method that can help reduce felt recoil while shooting these, because if you are not bracing yourself for these, they can, depending on the load you are shooting, it can have a little bit of a bite to it.
Yeah.
I think, too, as far as like sight pictures, so we're lucky we have optics on 2 of these. But let's say you just had the bead sight. That also has ghost ring sights.
Yeah, this is
a little bit
total
cheating.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of cheating.
Yeah,
but
just a bead.
Yeah, a bead's a little more it's literally 1 point of reference for aiming, and it's fixed to the barrel, right? It's very, very different. Your cheek weld on this versus a rifle's a little less free. It just smash your face down on this thing as far as you can get as level
Yeah,
as
it
you
smashed my nose a little bit as it did that too.
Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend it for smaller people unless you're really motivated.
Channel your inner Sarah Connor.
I will say one thing that's always kind of slept on, we had this discussion with lever action guns, but shotguns, I can't think of a single state where shotguns in general are prohibited.
There might be one that based off semi-auto shotguns, because they're talking about tactical shotguns and the way that legislation's worded, but a lot of times because it's manually operated, right? You could be in a slave state with that and a 30 lever gun or something and be pretty well armed. I think the days of shotgun primary are probably behind us.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But on the flip side, drones, just as an example of some current relevancy, right?
Yeah.
That is surprising to hear that, these dudes are taking shotguns from people's houses and desperately trying to find shotguns, and then,
Yeah, you also, I think urban environments is still pretty, this is a very formidable thing to have to run into. And then you see it now that you're starting to talk about people that are worried about warfare that's happening in trenches or in tunnels. You could do a lot worse.
Shotgun in a tunnel sounds terrifying.
That's a terrible. We literally made that reference, and I was like, I'm stacked up with all my homies, and it's just one dickhead with a shotgun that turns around, and I was like, we're all having a very bad day. I will say that as far as alternatives, because of the limitations, and again, thank you ATF for this having to be an 18.5-inch barrel.
26 OL.
It's a real pain in the ass. But because of that and because of the rounds limitations, I think as far as bag guns, I think PCCs make a lot more sense.
And I mean, honestly, like if we're talking about capability and you wanting to be as well rounded as possible, like you're going to need a pistol, you're going to need a rifle, and you're going to need a shotgun, more or less, right? Like being able to cover all those bases, especially talking about versatility and ammo adapters and other stuff, like the shotgun does quite a bit.
If you already own a handgun and you own a rifle, this is the one piece that you're missing, because still inside of 75 yards, you're getting clapped by a dude with a shotgun. You are a loot drop if that guy's got a shotgun and you don't.
Yeah, I mean, as long as he knows what it's gonna do.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. If that's that guy, training is the same.
The man with one gun. Yeah.
Yeah. If the training's the same and whatever, and I make you shadow box yourself, and this is what he shows up, and that's the engagement distance, that's a very bad day. But outside of that, thank you guys for watching and hanging out. If you guys have cool war stories with your war crime stick, put it in the comment section below. If you think we're crazy and 12 gauges are for birds and doors, Andrew, I'm talking about you.
Yep.
I'll argue with you in the comment section. I'm here for it.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Go tell us if you guys like this type of content or want to see us cover something specific. Please also put it in the comment section below. While you're down there, go ahead and hit a like on this and subscribe, because we produce these pretty much weekly now. How else can they find us?
So if you're interested in following us on social media, we can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at AR15com. And also, if you're interested in participating in our Discord discussions, you can find a link to that down in the description and or doobly-doo.
It's definitely doobly-doo.
If you guys are interested in this type of stuff and don't want to lose a ton of money, you can go check out our deals page. We do post deals weekly on there. We also have a cool deals letter for that. And then really and truly, the easiest way to support us is by supporting our sponsors. You can also really, truly, I think what's more important than that, just to us, is to support the companies that support your Second Amendment right. Without them making these products for you and making them available to you, none of us would be able to do that. So shout out to them. Go own some guns. Get a war crime stick in your arsenal.
Gospel of the war crime stick, baby.
Gospel of the war crime stick.